Good afternoon, friends. My name is Alena Shautsova. I am an immigration attorney from Brooklyn, New York. And today we're having our live Q&A, live Facebook presentation regarding the most recent immigration news and also some tips I provide during these presentations for you. So if you would like to handle your case yourself, maybe they will be useful to you. So thank you for joining me today. And the first news I would like to share with you, of course, traditionally, it would be the new deadline for immigration courts, meaning that the new deadline for reopening of the immigration courts. Hi, Ramil. Thank you for joining me. So, as you're probably aware, some immigration courts, I believe Los Angeles, for example, already are reopened. They're already having master and individual hearings, and some are not. So for majority of the immigration courts, for those that have not been reopened, the deadlines again have been postponed. So now the new date is October 16th including. It means that all the hearings, small and large, master hearings, high debate, master hearings and individual hearings are postponed. They're canceled, okay? For those courts that have not been reopened, canceled through October 16th. So if you had a hearing scheduled on October 1st, guess what? It's not going to take place, okay? Unless you are from one of the courts that have the reopened already, like courts in Los Angeles, for example, I believe they have reopened, some courts in California, some courts, I believe Dallas immigration court. It's better for you to check with your attorney, with the court. You check with the EOIR 800 system to see where your court hearing takes place. By the way, sometimes you'll be surprised, okay? I have clients who believe that they have hearings in one court and then they learn it's in a different court because it's either by mistake was transferred or it was not transferred when the client thought that it's going to be transferred. So you better check when your court date and where it's going to be. But for now, for the majority of the courts, the date is postponed again. So we'll see what's going to happen. Some people ask me, when do you think they're going to reopen? Some courts reopened and got sued for that, like in New Jersey. So I think many courts will wait, like in New York, because New York is pretty aggressive. So I think they don't want to have a lawsuit on their hands, and they may postpone the hearings perhaps until December, or perhaps even longer, or perhaps they will start the hearings telephonically as they promised, okay? Telephonically, maybe via Zoom, we will see. But for now, no hearings. Now, I also wanted to discuss with you something important because I receive a lot of inquiries about this asylum work permits, okay? Asylum work permits in connection, of course, with the new rules that got into effect on August 25th. So the question is whether people who filed their cases before August 25th but did not accumulate 180 days before August 25th could not file for their work permits. Are they going to qualify or not? Do they have to wait for 365 days? Well, here is the answer for you, okay? Those people who couldn't file their work permits for the first time before August 25th, the majority of those people have to wait, majority is singular, has to wait until they will have to wait for 365 days. But there is one very useful tip I'm going to share with you, right? There is a lawsuit going on, as always, in the United States there are lawsuits. So, for persons, for asylum seekers who are members of two non-for-profit organizations, and anybody can join them. You can join them even now. If you're a member of those organizations, you do not have to wait for 365 days. You will be able to file under the old rules, okay? So what are those organizations? Well, the CASA and ASAP. I pronounce it ASAP, maybe they pronounce it differently, but it's Asylum Seekers Advocacy Project and CASA. I'm not sure what CASA stands for, but you can easily Google it. It's easy to submit the application. It requires some information about your case, like your receipt number, your correct name. CASA requires photo identification, ASAP does not. But you can walk through the process of applying with them, becoming their members. It does not mean that they will be your lawyers. No, your lawyer, if you have one, is still going to be your lawyer, okay? But as soon as you receive proof that you are a member of the organization, currently, while the court's order is in place, you should be able to file for work permit, okay? If you're an asylum seeker. But here is a trick. Just remember the trick. Well, does it guarantee that you're going to receive a work permit? Well, of course it doesn't, because USCIS may take long time to review your application, and perhaps during that time the court order that was issued for members of these particular organizations will be changed. But it's an opportunity for you, and you should use it if you qualify to become a member, if you're an asylum seeker, okay? And of course, this advice is useful for those who already filed their cases and like on the borderline, right? 150, 180 days, they couldn't file for the asylum application, for the asylum-based work permits before August 25th, and now they do not know what to do. Well, I just told you what to do for free. All right, so if you like my tip, please support the channel so I can provide more useful tips. Lastly, I wanted to discuss with you some very important situation about the public charge. As you may be aware, public charge is back for everyone, right? Including New York. Some people still are confused. Unfortunately, public charge is back for everybody, including New York, okay? Starting October 13th, you must attach Form I-944 when you file your adjustment of status or some change of status applications. You have to do that. But remember, there are some exceptions. Not every benefit will be counted against you as a public benefit. I actually wrote a blog about that, published it on my website. But here I wanted to discuss some very specific situation. Some of you, not only filing for adjustment of status, maybe you cannot file for adjustment of status, but you will have to file for an immigrant visa overseas, right? So you probably may have to also file for a waiver. And if you know, or you're preparing your waiver, you may know that in certain situations you can use an argument of financial hardship. Yes, of course, you can read online that it says financial hardship is not important. It's important, okay? In my every case that I won, financial hardship to the qualifying relative was important. So it is important. But now, when you take the whole picture, you have to remember one thing. To win your waiver, you have to show as an applicant, as an immigrant, that the qualifying relative is relying on your income. If your qualifying relative is your spouse, it means that you are an immigrant making money and the spouse is likely not or does not make enough. Okay? Fine. So you submitted your paperwork, you showed that you're the main breadwinner, and here, by the way, in a waiver process, it doesn't matter that you worked without authorization, right? Your income will still count as an explanation where this family has the money from to act, to live, to support itself. And then you go for the visa interview. And during that step, much later, after you won your waiver, the government may look at your paperwork and say, oh, wait a second, your spouse does not make any money. How can they sponsor you into the United States? Because, you know, your income cannot be counted for the purposes of Affidavit I-864, most likely, right? Because if you worked without authorization, it will not. And now you find yourself in an interesting situation that, you know, that argument that you thought was very powerful and helped you to win your waiver now goes against you, because it shows that your spouse, actually the petitioner, the sponsor, person who provides the main affidavit of support, doesn't have any money, right? So that's something I want you to know, okay? That's something that demonstrates how different parts and different areas of immigration law in the United States sometimes act sort of against each other, all right? And you need to keep that in mind when you are trying to win your case, because of course the ultimate goal is not only the waiver. Some people call me and they say, well, I had the waiver approved, but what do I do, right? The ultimate goal is to receive your green card, right? The visa, the citizenship. So that's something very important, because now when you're going to be dealing with a public charge, you have to keep this in mind if you need a waiver, that it may affect your case more than you think, okay? And of course, I would recommend to probably use an attorney, an accountant in these situations, just to make sure you're not going to mess up your case, okay? All right, and now, guys, thank you for joining me. If you have some questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Hi, Griselda. Hi, Ganil. Hi, Sehada. My parents, 65 and 72, they have visa. Are they allowed to come to the United States? Do you know about this? Well, those people who already have a visa absolutely are allowed to come to the United States. But you need to remember two things. First, COVID restrictions, okay? If the planes are flying from your country to the United States, if there are no direct planes, there may be, if you even stop somewhere in transit, you may have to quarantine, okay? So those are important restrictions. In the United States, I believe they stopped measuring your temperature when you come in. But another thing that you may want to know is the public charge situation, because if your parents are coming on a tourist visa, I would suggest to prepare a packet, some documents showing that they will have funds, or you will have funds, or somebody where they're going to be staying to support themselves. And please try to obtain for them temporarily medical insurance. I know that in many countries it's not a problem and it's not expensive. A special insurance for those who are traveling to the United States. Why? Because of the public charge. Because the situation is such that we do not know how and when it's going to be implemented. It changes from day to day. So you do not want your parents to be stuck at the border because of this issue, right? So prepare in advance. And if there are open flights, there is no restriction. I think they have a tourist visa. No restrictions for tourists to come at this time. What about New York? Hi, Ghazi. What about New York? Well, if you're asking about New York courts, New York is one of those courts that have not been reopened. So hearings specifically in New York are canceled, including October 16th. Okay. Hi, Jay. Can I get work permit if I apply for asylum after 1 year, over 14 days? My clock says 62 days left. I do not know. Well, if you filed your application for asylum, prior to August 25th, then the 1 year restriction on work permits would not apply to you. But if your clock stopped or something, then you may not be able to get the work permit, okay? It depends on what's happening in your case. I would suggest that you talk to the person who helped you with your case. Otherwise, if your case, a person can file for work permit, let's say forget this 365-day rule, after his case has been accepted and has been pending for 150 days, okay, since filing. But a person would receive a work permit no earlier than 180 days after the case was filed, provided that during this time the clock was not stopped, the asylum seeker did not cause any delays, okay? So it's hard for me to precisely answer your question. Unfortunately, I don't have all the information I would need. Hi, Ramil. My question is, my wife granted asylum and now she's a green card holder, but I have a status cat. Cancellation removal, status. Reason I have a DUI 6 years ago. Can she apply or just status I-7360 as a relative petition take care of that? Well, there are some waivers. If your question is if through that particular situation you'll be qualifying for some waivers, perhaps, you know, I would suggest that you take your records, right? If you have a convention against torture, I guess that's what you meant. You know, I would suggest to take your records and show them to an attorney, because it's hard for me to resolve your long-lasting immigration issue within this couple of seconds that I look into your case. I would certainly have to study it and see what happened, why previously you didn't qualify for asylum. You said that you had a DUI 6 years ago or something. Was it the reason, or was there some other reasons? You know, were you in deportation before? So it's hard for me to say if her petition would amend the situation. And if you believe that in this particular case you probably had a lawyer, maybe a couple. So if you're looking for a second opinion, please call my office. We're going to sit down, look into your case, see what can be done. You know, the DUI usually is not something that would prevent you from asylum unless there are certain specific situations, okay? In certain specific situations. So I would need to see your criminal records as well. So something, you know, something that I think more appropriate for a thorough review. Hi, Gazi. If anyone final hearing after 2021, what do you know about that? Nothing. You just have to wait for your hearing date. Hearings in 2021 is still on the calendar, so you just have to prepare. Guys, even if you had a hearing on October 17th, right? You still have to prepare for the hearing, because you do not know what's going to happen a week from now. What if the cases, excuse me, will go forward and you're not prepared? You cannot rely on this, you know, postponement situation. Also, there is a specific memo, a standing order, saying that even if the case is being canceled like that, you still have to comply with the deadlines. So, for example, for your case, the judge said you have to send the documents prior to your individual hearing 30 days in advance. But we find out about these postponements like a week in advance, 2 weeks in advance. It means that you must comply with the deadline, even if the case is later is canceled, your hearing is canceled, right? So for somebody who is in 2021, my best advice, prepare for your hearing as if it's going to go forward, because we do not know, all right? It may go forward. It may go forward online. You still have to be prepared. Hi, Hasnain. My wife is a green card holder since 9 years. She was interviewed, failed for twice for English speaking. Can we see regarding her citizenship? Well, sure, absolutely. But, you know, one of the main qualifications to apply for the citizenship in the United States is ability to have some conversational, elementary level English skills, right? So sure, we can take a look into the situation and see if she qualifies for certain exceptions, all right? Or she just has to study English, you know, sometimes this is the case. Hi, Arley. I was checked the immigration automatic case and said the immigration judge granted my cancellation of removal application last week. I didn't receive the letter from the judge yet, but my attorney said I do not need to do the InfoPass because the USCIS is using an old fingerprints and my green card will arrive in the mail. You should follow your attorney's advice. Usually when the cancellation of removal is granted and the visa is available because there is a long waiting list, that's absolutely correct. You're going to get your green card by mail. Hi, Jacqueline. Hi, Larry Dunn. Does public charge affect applicant who apply for adjustment of status based on asylum granted? Well, the person who is an asylee, right, is exempt from the public charge. All right. So the person who received asylum status actually qualifies, can and should, if needed, to apply for public benefits. All right. So this is one of the exceptions to the public charge rule, along with VAWA cases, T visa, human trafficking, visa beneficiaries. I believe there is one more, special immigrant juveniles. They also are exempt from this public charge rule. Hi, Griselda. My husband's green card was stolen and reported 5 years ago and presently expired. Along with his original social security card also was stolen. It was in his wallet, all the documents. We attempted to get another social security card, a social security office, and they directed him 3 times to 26 Federal Plaza, which once he went and the immigration department detained him to Louisiana for nearly a year. This is some terrible, terrible story, very strange. Well, if your husband's green card was stolen, there is a procedure for it to restore the green card. She just needs to apply for it, okay? I believe it's a form I-90 to replace the green card. And he also, if he was granted status, he should have notices showing that his adjustment of status, or however he received his green card through cancellation or removal, he should have some kind of a proof that it was granted. So this is a very, very strange situation, I have to say. Why was he detained? Also not clear, because if you are, you see, the card itself is not your status, okay? Your status is given by the decision of USCIS or immigration judge. The card itself is just maybe confirmation of that status. All right. So if the detaining officers had information that he was still in status, which can be easily checked in the system, I do not know why he was detained. It's very strange. Hi, Fatama. My daughter is 9 years old and I'm asylum seeker. Can my daughter having DACA program, is it possible? To qualify for DACA, your child was supposed to be in the United States, I think starting from 2014, from 2008 to something like that, right? There are no new DACA applications. So my guess would be that she would not qualify, okay, for DACA. But because you should not be relying on online things like this in deciding the fate of your daughter, I would direct you to USCIS website, okay? And you would see the qualifications for DACA. However, the problem is this: even if she qualified for DACA when it was still in place, right? Right now, USCIS does not accept new DACA filings, only extensions, okay? So that's the problem. Hi, Fawad. How long you receive a fingerprint for your citizenship? You applied like 3 months ago and I still didn't receive my fingerprint notice. There are huge delays right now for the fingerprint notices. So as long as you got your receipt, right, that your application was in fact accepted by USCIS, you should be okay. I wouldn't worry about that fingerprint situation at all. Also, I hope you didn't change your fingerprints. So government may very well check your fingerprints that are in the system. but you probably will be issued a notice to appear for the fingerprints, but some time later, because if you filed it 3 months ago, it means you were filing it during the peak of the pandemic, and that's why you didn't receive the notice. Nothing out of ordinary during this time. Okay, so don't worry. Hi Caesar. Hi Esther. We did fingerprints already, but my lawyer said she will do it after the interview. What she will do after the interview? Maybe you had the beginning of the question and I lost it. All right. Hi Mijanur. I have a question about asylum. Last year I did file asylum case. I got social security and work permit. Congratulations. But I do not know when I will face the interview. Can you explain, please? Unfortunately, nobody knows. You will have to wait for the asylum office to process your case and call you for the interview, okay? Each office has different calendars. For example, office in New Jersey is already calling people for the interview. Some offices maybe not. The problem is the pandemic, of course, because it basically ruined everybody's plans. But you will be called for the interview. If you filed your asylum case last year, and I assume you're not in immigration court, okay? And this is my assumption because you asked for the interview. I would think that by the end of the next year, you should be called for the interview because they take the last cases first, right? So it will be just my assumption, okay? That's just my assumption. All right, guys, so thank you very much for your questions. Unfortunately, I cannot answer every single question, but I will try to do that, okay? I will try to do that in my future live Q&As. Thank you very much for participating. And please like, share this video, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and I hope to see you soon.